Today, we're going to be watching a video about a woman who transitioned into a man and then immediately regrets it. I thought it was fascinating because no one talk about that side of the transitioning process. It's always about, oh, I'm happy about your transitioning. But no one ever talks about this part where they actually regrets it. So without further ado, I'm not going to talk too long. Let's get straight to the video.
I was born biologically female. I began transitioning and taking hormones when I was 18 years old. Growing up, I couldn't pinpoint what my issues were, and then I realized that it might be a gender.
To all my guys watching this, would you still fuck her? I would. If she has like the vagina, if she still has a vagina, I would still hit because that's all it's about. Me personally, I go by the biological factor. Were you born with it? Then yeah, I'll still fuck. As long as she ain't do any surgical things to remove it, any weird stuff. But yeah, I would hit. Would you guys hit?
Issue. When I turned 18, I did go to Planned Parenthood. I just stated that I had gender dysphoria and they gave me testosterone a week later. Before I went on hormone therapy, I wasn't required to see any therapist or any sort of a doctor at all. So about a year and a half after I was on hormones, I decided to see a therapist about getting approval for top surgery. I walked in on one appointment for half an hour, and then she emailed my insurance for approval, just like that. Even at this point, when I was passing as a man, I still had these doubts in the back of my mind that said, what if you're wrong? What if you made a mistake? In the end, I decided not to do the surgery. At that point that I decided to detransition and live my life as a woman again.
Oh, good. Like, I never understood women transitioning to a man. Like, you know how hard it is to be a man? I know we don't talk about it a lot. I know we don't express ourselves a lot, but it is fucking difficult. And there's so many things you have to be consciously aware of. Like if you're down in the alley and a woman is coming towards you, you have to cross on the other side of the street so she don't feel uncomfortable. Like I went to this clinic not too long ago. I walked in, I was like, hey, I'm here to just get a basic testing to see if I don't have any STDs or anything that would, harm my health, right? You know what they fucking told me? They was like, oh, this is an all women's clinic. We don't serve men here. What do you mean you don't serve men? And that rubbed me the wrong way. But as a man, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Complain? But yeah, man, it's shitty. I don't think men, yeah, we have strength and we fucking do crazy stuff. It looks fun. But at the same time, like a lot of guys are depressed. You know what I mean? So a woman having the easy life, wanting to transition into a hard life, I never understood that. But anyways, we move on.
As an adult, it took me a long time to figure out who I was and who I wanted to be. Kids especially need to see a therapist before making any sort of permanent medical decisions like going on hormone blockers and surgeries especially. I mean, they don't even know what they want for dinner the next day, let alone what gender they are. The biggest mistake that I made was that I did not get the right amount of therapy or medical advice needed. These days, if you tell a parent if their child thinks that they might be transgender or has gender dysphoria, to wait and really consider it and maybe seek other therapy, you're just seen as transphobic now because you're not accepting people. I'm not anti-trans at all. I support the trans community very much, but I also support medical responsibility.
If you question this at all, you get labeled really quickly, correct?
You do, immediately as transphobic.
Why do you think that is?
I think that a lot of the transgender community, they push so much for acceptance that when you immediately, or anytime you start to question them, even if it's out of the goodness of your heart to try and make sure that they're making the right decision, anything that goes against their narrative is just immediately labeled as transphobic.
I think when it comes to the trans community, I feel like they've been bashed for so long. So whenever someone have an opinion of them, they immediately go on the defense and try to protect themselves. Like I get that point, but I do think the necessary approach should be to seek medical help and therapy and good people around you that's guiding you through the process as opposed to you just doing it because you saw a TV show or whatever. But yeah, right now, because I just said that, people are going to take it as trans hate. It's really not. So it's important that people like her come out and say what we're thinking. So
after you started to transition, how else did you begin to change your life to live as a man?
I had changed my name. I started wearing a binder. I even moved cities because at the time I was very hesitant to actually come out to coworkers. So I moved about 4 hours away, got a completely different job, and introduced myself as a trans man.
Okay. And what happened when you began to schedule time to get a double mastectomy?
I haven't had any top surgeries, but I did get approved for it.
Okay, that's what it is. You got approved for it.
I did. I got approved. And how that worked, it was scarily easy to do because I had just called a therapist and I had scheduled one appointment, for like a 30-minute session to talk about it. And I essentially walked in. I said, I identify as transgender and I want to get top surgery. And we chatted for a bit, maybe for half an hour. And at the end of the session, she wrote me an approval letter to send to my insurance. And then I got approved just like that.
That's because they don't have your best interests. They only care about the dollars. They don't go fuck. They knew when you came in there, you was already approved. There's no assessment that they go by to try to help you. I don't think I feel like the people that be like, yeah, trans women's rights. I feel like they're the ones that really don't give a fuck about you. They just want to go against the grain. Like for the people like me that think like me, it's about, okay, you could be a trans woman if you want to. Just make sure your transitioning is correct. So later you won't regret it or you hate yourself after. You know what I mean? Just take the necessary step. I feel like that conversation is not being had a lot of the time. And it's shitty because that's the person life you fucking with. That's their life. They're trusting you to guide them through this transitioning process. And you over here just approving them just because you want to fucking add money to your pocket. I think it's shitty.
When you first started, you went in, you said to Planned Parenthood.
Yes.
And they gave you testosterone immediately.
Yeah, I essentially just made a phone call and said, I want to transition. And it was immediately given. I got a prescription and went to pick it up like a week later.
Did they ask you questions? Did they do any psychological testing? Did they ask you why? What was your motive?
It was completely self-diagnosed. Well, self-diagnosed. I claimed that I had gender dysphoria and I wanted to transition, and they didn't really ask me any questions about it.
Bro, she's so pretty, yo. Well, not that picture, but she's a pretty girl.
I just called them and I said, when can I get this? And they just said they needed to write me a prescription for it and send it. And that's essentially
you
what
had
happened.
No proof that you were gender dysphoric. You didn't.
Yeah, I didn't talk to anyone about it. Nobody medically professionally. I had just looked up. I did some like trans research, I guess, into the transgender community and everybody online, and they just seemed so happy and successful. And at the time, I didn't see any information on detransition or any like the negatives about it. And so I kind of got completely wrapped into that.
Gender dysphoria can be a miserable way to live if that's what they're experiencing. And there are criteria for that. And one of the criteria is time, that is persistent across time. But you didn't have any of those criteria. You didn't demonstrate that. You didn't document that. You didn't have any professional that documented that.
Nope.
You just said, I want testosterone, they gave it to you.
Yeah, I had confused, because I had become uncomfortable with how society had seen me as a woman sexually, and I had confused that, being uncomfortable with my gender, as gender dysphoria and being uncomfortable with my body. So I didn't actually have gender dysphoria. I had just confused myself into thinking that I did.
Do you have a...
Insane. A woman transitioning to a guy, I feel like that's the worst thing ever. Because when you do actually transition, you become the lowest ranking man. You're not going to be good at sports. You're still going to be weak as fuck. You're still going to be a woman. You're just going to have facial hair. You're not going to have any of the attributes that a man would have. And God forbid, if you go to prison, that's the first question they're going to ask you. Oh, you're a trans man. You still got a pussy? Sorry, y'all. I just had to do it. But anyways, thanks for watching that video. I'm out. If you like that video, I'm trying to get to 2,000 subscribers. So like, share, subscribe, and get me there.